There are 6 real big movements of anarchist thought. 3 of them you can classify as collectivist. 3 of them you can classify as individualist. Another way you can separate them is their treatment of private property. Private property has always had a really weird relationship with anarchy, at least with mutualism. When Proudhon started to write about it, he was the one who said property is theft, but he wasn't really against that much private property. What he did was create a different class between private property, which was owning land or renting out things. Mutualists are against rent because they see that, say, if I were a landowner and you didn't have enough money to buy your own house, but you started to rent, a mutualist will actually see if once I rent you that land, because you're the one using it and you're the one occupying it, that essentially becomes your land at that point rather than mine. And I have no right to take rent from you because I'm not the one using it. So the collectivist anarchists are basically the primitivists, the communists, and the syndicalists. Those are the big 3 that are around now. All right, I guess. Maybe you failed a test. We might have to cut that out for the video. Might want to shut the doors too. I'll give it a little rest so you can cut that. Be a little time skip. This will be on YouTube, by the way. Hopefully it won't be taken down.
That's good, because you put Megan and Karina there in that video.
I did? Yeah. Nice. All right. But so the communists are the big ones of the leftists. And the communists, they're all about abolition of states, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't be very good anarchists, but also markets, money, and property. So they want to abolish basically everything we have now. No, the communists. Because they see that civilization works best when we all sort of own the means of production. We all own capital together. So therefore, if we all own it together, we don't really need money. Because the Marxist creed, from each, what is it? Yeah, from each according to his ability, and to each according to his need. I don't care that much about Marx. I'll show my biases. I don't know his quotes. They really espouse what Marx's theory originally was. The anarcho-communists, though, tend to want to skip over the dictatorship of the proletariat because they saw what happened in China and the Soviet Union. There's also the syndicalists, who are essentially communists, but their bigger focus is on worker solidarity. They view that ownership of the means of production is going to be better found and society will be better controlled if the workers themselves basically keep the acts of ownership and the acts of ruling to themselves. Essentially, you stop seeing the need for political organization because unions, for lack of a better word, they won't really be unions at this point, but unions are the ones that are making things work. You saw actually a similar example of that in some aspects of the guilds back in the Middle Ages. And so an example, a good comparison of that is the syndicalists are more like the guilds, where there was a single monopoly over the workers of a particular service. But anarchist law would be more like merchant law, where it was more of an association of the different merchants and negotiated law. Then there are the primitivists. And it's hard for me to talk about them without being condescending. And I'll just throw my biases out there. I think the primitivists are a little ridiculous. Primitivists accept the capitalist premise that you need capitalism and private property in order to have civilization. But rather than simply accept private property as good for civilization, what the primitivists do is reject civilization. So what the primitivists, they see as that sort of proto-civilized, proto-city living that humanity spent most of its time in as a good thing, and they would rather go back to that. Some of them tend to be kind of Luddite-ish. They reject a lot of technological developments. Not all of them, just that tends to be a current. But they tend to be big animal rights activists, and they see harming the environment as such an important as such an important issue that they would happily abolish everything because they see it as such an an act of aggression that it is more moral to simply not have civilization and go back to that sort of hunter-gatherer lifestyle than it is to persist in the destruction of the environment that capitalism has caused. The three more individualist strands of anarchy are, I'll start with mutualism. Now, mutualism is kind of pro-private property, but not really. They reject private property in the sense that, as I explained with renting, they don't see simply owning land or like a Lockean view of ownership of land. I go homestead this, work it a bit, and now it's mine, and I can do whatever I want with it for the rest of the time. They only see possessions as legitimate. And possession would be, as I explained before, why they reject rent. Because if I'm a landlord, but I'm an absentee landlord, I'm not using the building I own, so it's not mine to claim.
Possession is 10/10 of the law.
Right. Possession is everything. I mean, if I steal from you, that doesn't count.
Why not?
Because it was yours and you were using it, so it's yours to claim. As long as you continue to have a reasonable claim to its use, then it's yours. But if you're not using it all, you throw it away, not yours anymore. Another big thing with the mutualists are wage slavery. I'm not sure if it was Proudhon who actually coined the term wage slavery or not, but the whole idea of working for somebody else he saw as naturally exploitive because of the incredible power employers have over laborers. He saw that it can't necessarily actually be a voluntary contract. The bigger thinkers for there are Proudhon, Benjamin Tucker, and nowadays Kevin Carson and Brad Spangler. Anarcho-capitalism is pretty much the opposite of anarcho-communism. Anarcho-capitalism is born out of the US libertarian movement. The whole idea of free markets, individual rights, that sort of classical liberal rebirth here in America, just taken to its extreme. Basically, the anarcho-capitalists see, well, law, justice, police, these are all goods. These are all good services, but free markets can best provide services. Therefore, let it to the market. So they essentially, it's privatized law, privatized police, but along with that, you don't have monopolistic. The anarcho-capitalists are more about anti-monopoly than they are anti-power. They don't see social power as necessarily a bad thing, because in the anarcho-capitalist view, the only way to really get social power is either force people to do it, in which case it's wrong and everyone will notice, or be a generally good guy and productive member of society. The bigger thinkers for there are Ludwig von Mises and the guy on my shirt, Murray Rothbard. Then there's, I don't know what to call this. There is a term called voluntarism, and I'm sure once this goes onto YouTube and some of my anarchist friends see it, they're going to get incredibly butt frustrated about this. I'm just going to lump everything else on the individualist pro-private property side under voluntarism, because I don't know what else to call it, and neither do they. It is individualist, and it's kind of like a middle ground between mutualists and anarcho-capitalists. They're okay with private property. They're fine with private property. They support most of what we would consider laissez-faire capitalists. They support a lot of the theory of the anarcho-capitalists. But they still don't, they have more of a problem with political power as well. I'm sorry, social power. So they're afraid that, all right, so once wealth accumulation happens, which still could probably happen under capitalism, even if it's a stateless capitalism, that's not good because that will lead to a state. So the voluntarists are a little more restricted in how much social power they're willing to give. The voluntarists are basically the big claim for the voluntarists is basically pro-market anti-capitalism, since they view the more historical label of capitalism as, states and corporations merging together, which of course no one likes. So I will show you one concluding video. and then I will happily take any and all questions, of which I hope you have many.